Okay, hi. So this is a book recommendations video for books relating to the NewMoonAthon, which is a readathon I am hosting in January for the entirety of January. It is a celebration of the Lunar New Year, and it is just for fun. So if you want to read a zine or an epic, you can read manga or comics, whatever, 5 pages or 500. We're just happy you're here. We have 8 prompts this year, which is slightly more than usual because it is running for longer than usual. Some of these prompts, unfortunately, I have more recommendations for than others. But we have generally around 3 for each. You can also check on StoryGraph, where people have very kindly already started adding the books they're reading, and I will be adding these to StoryGraph later tonight. So the first prompt is Mine Are Cold or Xiaohan, and this is read a book that gives you chills. The prompts are all very broad and you can interpret them as you wish. For this, unfortunately, I do not have this to hand. There is exquisite fabrics, traditional weaving and embroidered patterns of China by Gao Chunming. This is nonfiction. It is about textiles and the history of textiles and their symbolism throughout Chinese history. It's both because fashion and clothing history is something that I am passionate about, and also because it is a beautiful book. Like, it gives me chills just to see it and to hold it. The other suggestion I have is the Grave Robbers Chronicles. There is a genre of tomb robbing books in China that are very action adventure-y, but also supernatural. And I find that very fun. The monsters in this series are great, and I highly recommend it for that. There is also, translated in English, this series by Qiansha Bachang and translated by Jeremy Chiang. City of Sand is the first one, and then the sequel is The Dragon Ridge Tombs. I do believe there were more books in the series, but I think these are the only 2 that were translated. And of the 2, I would recommend the Grave Robbers Chronicles over both. This has also had a lot of adaptations if you would like to have a look at the series before you start reading it. And also for chills, I have decided to put Shanghai Jing, which is the classic of mountains and seas, but specifically art books, because I love art and art gives me the chills. So, as you can see, it's a very beautiful book. We have this one as well. Forgive me, my eyes are bigger than my literacy, and so I don't really know who wrote these, who illustrated them. The second prompt is Laba Jia, which is the Laba Festival. And the prompt for this one is read a book with Buddhist influences. Most of my recommendations for this are going to be non-fiction because I don't really know books with Buddhist characters. That being said, I did give a kind of blanket suggestion to look at Xianxia. And that includes a lot of like the Seven Seas Dan Mei books, because Chinese cosmology was very influenced by Buddhism. If you have seen like any kind of lovers who are separated and then they reincarnate, I would say that is very much that very much counts. There are also, I believe I said, cookbooks would be a good one as well. But the nonfiction that I have with me right here are Buddhism, Origins, Traditions, and Contemporary Life, edited by Jana Gunma and Sansan Mei. This takes a look at Buddhism in the present day, its history, but I believe it looks more at the Indian and Southeast Asian as well, Buddhism and what it's like there. We also have Religions of Beijing, which is edited by Yobin and Timothy Nepper. I like this personally because it's a bilingual book. I haven't read this one yet, but they absolutely will be including. You can't not talk about this and not include Buddhism. I do also have one recommendation for fiction, and I have to thank one of the people on StoryGraph for this because it completely slipped my mind, and that is A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. The third prompt is Major Cold or Dahan, where Shaohan is mostly just defined as like a cold time of year, minor cold. Dahan is specifically the coldest time of year. And so the prompt for this is read a book that makes you think of winter. And I would say that my suggestions for both of them are pretty interchangeable. So for this, we have Red Blossom and Snow by Jeannie Lynn. This is a series that I dearly love. It is historical romance mystery, and it includes a different couple in all of the primary books who go on to solve mysteries. It's really fun. It is a very vividly drawn world, and very enjoyable. The next one would be, fortunately I don't have a copy to hand, White Fox by Chen Jiatong, translated by Jennifer Feely and illustrated by Viola Wang. This is a children's book. I think it is a good book. It can get a little bit dark, so maybe not quite for the very young ones. I say that because the art style is very sweet, and it's a little bit deceptive to my mind. There is quite a bit of death, just to keep that in mind. And also, When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Niveau. This is another series that I love. It's very much a series about books and stories and myths and legends and the way that informs culture. But it's also very fun. It's not nearly as serious as I'm making it out to be. They're also very short. This is the second one. It is the cleric. She is traveling on mammoths. There are mammoths when they get caught in a snowstorm, and down the mountain come these tigers, and they spend the night going back and forth about this legend and the way that both humans and tigers interpret it. And it's very interesting and quite tense because the tigers would eat them. I highly recommend this series. After that, it is The Little New Year, or Xiaonian, read a book where food is important. And for this, the first book I'm going to recommend is the book of Swindles by Gianni New, translated by Christopher Rea and Bruce Rask. This is a book of... I can't quite remember the dynasty. I'm sorry. But it is... it's non-fiction. It is basically a list of different scams that people have run. And I first found this out on Tumblr, where someone was talking about an absolutely batshit scam. I am including this because Type 18 includes coaxing a sister-in-law into adultery to scam oil and meat. And food is quite important to that scam. I would also recommend Chinese Fairy Tale Feasts. Now, this is something that you can read with younger children. I also really like this because I have been trying to learn to cook more. And there are recipes. They're very easy. They're meant to be cooked with children. And so I did not burn the house down while attempting them. These are mostly adapted stories, but there are a few originals. And then, so we have A Full Love Story by Lonla, which is YA romance. It is deliciously foodie and about two kids from rival families. Both of their families own a restaurant. It's a really well-written book. Okay, this is half a joke. This book is half a joke. It is The Price of Meat by KJ Charles. It's horror and mystery. Whether you think the mystery is done very well, I will leave up to you. It has excellent moments of horror. It absolutely fits the prompt. But yeah, maybe don't take that one too seriously. The fifth prompt is the Spring Festival, Chunjia, which is the New Year itself, and this is read a book featuring a celebration. First recommendation is Lunar New Year Love Story. Sorry, Lunar New Year Love Story by Jinluan Yang and my apologies, Leon Pham. It's a graphic novel. It is a rom-com taking place during the Lunar New Year. And, with those two, it's really lovely, the art. Then we have Of Dragons, Feasts and Murders by Alec de Bodar, which is a companion series of novellas to The Dominion of the Fallen, which is deliciously gothic, but quite dark. This is a lot more lighthearted. It is queer. It is fantasy, historical mystery set in a Paris, a turn of the century Paris, I think, which has been ravaged by war and is being ruled by fallen angels. Thuan is a prince of the dragons which live in the Seine, and he has brought his husband Asmodeus to celebrate the new year, which doesn't quite go to plan when they find a corpse outside their rooms, and Thuan is not too happy about this, but the murder husband Asmodeus very much is. It's a really fun read. After that, I would say Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This is a hesitant rec. It is YA adult crossover, but I think quite a few people have found it more on the YA side. Very inspired by Shansha. I say it's a hesitant recommendation because I do believe that there are references to humans worshipping her mother because her mother is Chang'e. I also believe that there is some festivity happening in the Poppy War that is very adult, quite dark in places, but it very much does have a celebration of some kind. Sixth prompt is snake or Shi, which is because it's the year of the snake that we're going into. And this is to read a book that you associate with the sign. And I don't have either of these copies with me, my apologies. The first is Legend of the White Snake by Shirley. This is romantic fantasy. It is a telling of Madam Whitesnake, and it's queer. I really liked Shirley's Fake Dates and Mooncakes, which was just overall very enjoyable, but also great on like a technical level. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I would also say Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio by Fu Sungling, because I do believe that Madam Whitesnake is one of the tales. There is also another story, however, about a snake. So there's definitely one. The seventh prompt is future. Read a book that looks forward. And my first recommendation for this is Come Drink With Me by Michelle Can. It is a fairy tale. Can has a lovely collection of 3 novelettes, which are a romantic Chinese fairy tales. I recommend all of them, but this one in particular has a focus on like futurity. They're very short, like I said, they're novelettes, so I will not go into any more depth with that. I would also perhaps recommend 12 Days by Junie Kim, which is a graphic novel. It is one that looks back a lot into the past, but we're going over the 12 days, and so there is a sense of like what is going to come after this. The 12 days are the days in which the main character, Jackie, puts her ex's ashes into a smoothie and drinks them as a process of grieving. It can be a little bit of a difficult read, but I think it's quite rewarding if it is something that you can. On a much lighter note, and again, this is something that you can read with kids, it is the manga Animal Crossing New Horizons Deserted Island Diary. I have 2 here. It is very zany, very high energy, but if you know anything about Animal Crossing, it is just like you arrive on this island, you set about building it up, getting your villagers in. So it is building to something. We have 4 main characters here rather than, in the game where it's just you and any guest you might invite in. The 8th and final prompt is Double Happiness, which is read a book that brings you joy. And I had a lot of trouble with this because I don't know what brings you joy. So I thought I would talk about some books that bring me joy. And that is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Eilen. It is one, it's a beautiful book. It is 2, Chinese fantasy written in a way that I haven't really seen it done by anyone else. It is 3, it touches on elements that I haven't really seen other people interact with too much. For instance, there are idioms. There is a mention of, and I keep getting this mixed up, my apologies, I think it's 3 souls and 5 spirits, which if you know, there was ancestor worship first, and Taoism, and then Buddhism came in and introduced like reincarnation. And so you had this tension between ancestor veneration and ancestors who kind of stop being there for you because they've gone off and reincarnated, and this is kind of a way to unify that. It's not in depth. This would also work for Buddhism because of that. I would argue it's just really interesting, and it's also tea magic, which I love. I would recommend for the romance readers The Kiss Quotient and The Bride Test by Helen Huang. The first has an autistic heroine who is looking for some guidance in romance. We're going to leave it at romance. It is. There's a lot of sex in the book. But she finds this guy who's willing to help her, and they fall in love, and it's lovely. This one might be a little bit more difficult for some people to swallow because it has an autistic hero, and Esme, the girl, is kind of brought over from Vietnam, scouted by his mother as a potential bride. I think this is the best book in the series. I absolutely loved it. But I do understand if that makes people a little bit leery. And then I would recommend The Ones We're Meant to Find. This is sci-fi. It is YA, but I feel like the image of what YA is that comes to mind when you say that is a little bit flatter than what Joan Ho writes. So these are cities that kind of float above the water, and one of the two sisters disappears into the sea and the other is left to grieve and search for her. And it really digs into environmentalism. It is the sci-fi twist is really excellent. There's kind of an anti-romance as well, which I really enjoyed. Joan Ho also wrote Descendant of the Crane, and that is also excellent. It was originally planned to be part of a series, and I think you can really see it, especially in the ending, but it's well worth your time. It is her debut, and it kind of touches on some Shanxia elements, but it's very heavy on the politics. I would also recommend that you have a look at Hui3R, which is a WordPress blog, and Dreams of Jianghu, which is also a WordPress blog. You can find fan translations there. They're excellent. Also look up Dochi if you're specifically looking for Baihe or Sapphic fan translations. There are some books that I would like to put out there that aren't necessarily fitting prompts. Oops. Okay. Try not to knock the laptop over, please. Or the books. The first is monstrous. This is not the first volume, but as you can see, it is gorgeous, stunning, would possibly work for chills. It is very graphic, very dark. So I would caution that. Excellent series all the same. After the Dragons is also a very good book. It deals with environmental issues, it's set in the future in Beijing, and at a time when dragons are no longer like creatures of legend, but they are instead like made pets and to fight in the street brawls, kind of like dog fights. And we have a character who rehabilitates them, and another Elijah, who is a medical student, and he comes in and they meet, and they make great partners. I am a little bit cautious about their relationship as someone, because it makes perfect sense in terms of motivation, but he is a little bit pushy in a way about illness that makes me a little bit uncomfortable as a chronically ill person. I get it. I get his motivations. I get why he is that way. Just something to be a little bit wary of going in. Nope. Okay, I swear I just had it to hand. There is a translated fiction website. I think it is just translatedfiction.com. The book that I have is Flower in the Vase, Volume 1. And it is a simplified English translation. I don't think it's quite simple English, but if you're looking for a way into like more classic fiction, I think that would be a good place to start. I would again caution that they translate the names, which does make it a little bit easier to retain if you're not used to Chinese names. However, it does make it a little bit harder to engage with the text outside of the translation. Anyway, those are all of the recommendations that I have for the moment. Please feel free to check in with the StoryGraph later, which I will be going to update now. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the readathon. Bye.